Good evening. Good evening to the team that gets it clean. And I'm glad to welcome you in today to Thursday Thoughts with Sharon Greene-Golden. All things thorough processing. I hope everybody's having a good evening. And we're going to jump right in today and think about collaboration, teamwork, being friendly, making friends. So we work for surgical services. And within surgical services, you have the operating room itself. You have outpatient surgery, pre-op holding. You have PACU. You have anesthesia. And you have sterile processing. So all of us work together as a unit, or we should. But that's not the only units that you should have. You should be friendly with all the other units in the hospital because, as we say all the time, sterile processing is the heart of the hospital. We do something almost for every department in the hospital. But no man is an island, and so you can't sit out there by yourself with your chest poked out and say, we're SPD and we're all that. Even if we are, you have to find yourself friendly. It's easier to make friends than to be out there on that island by yourself. You never know when you may need somebody. So we'll start off with our biggest friend. And our biggest friend actually should be the operating room. And so when you think about friendships, you think about collaboration. I'm not talking about friendships where we all go into the bar. I'm not talking about friendships where, we're all sitting out having a picnic on the beach. If you're able to do that, that's good. But remember, our main job is to produce a product for patients who are coming in to have surgery. And so we need to work with the teams that are there, the operating room, who is our biggest customer. We just have to be real about it. They're our biggest customer. Even if you have L&D, CBIR, ED, radiation oncology, all the other departments in the hospital, your biggest customer is and always will be the operating room. So we should be working together. But what I find is that for years, we spent a lot of time fighting. We came in every day, everybody put their boxing gloves on, and we came to work, and we would fight amongst each other. The operating room fight with SPD, SPD's fighting with the operating room, and the person that gets the short end of that stick happens to be our patient, who we all claim we're there working for. So if we're all working for one particular entity, how is it that we come in fighting? We all should have the same goal in mind. So collaboration is important, but I find that SPD tech sometimes, we in general, not just we by ourselves, we in general have a tendency to talk about what we have done and what everybody else isn't doing. So I was reading and I thought about something that I started many years ago, and that was during hospital week especially, and SPD week, we would do walk a mile in my shoes, where we would actually invite people down. At that time I was down, now I'm on the same level. We would invite people down to the sterile processing department, and we would have done posters, we had pictures, we had coveralls for them to put on, and we would let them walk through sterile processing once they were properly dressed. And we would talk about what we do every day, because realistically, most people have no clue. We especially invited the operating room, because the operating room, sometimes our biggest customer thinks that all we do is, put the trays together. And they don't always understand everything that goes into putting the tray together. Just like sterile processing thinks the operating room miraculously does a surgical case, but they don't understand what it takes to put the surgical case together. We pick the case, we put it in a case cart, we roll it over to the operating room, and we think, hey, we've done a big job. But it takes a lot to set a case up. So we invited people over to spend time in our space. And in turn, they invited us over to spend time in their space. And as we spent time in each other's space, we learned that we are more alike than not. And what I found out with L&D, with ED, with CVIR, when it comes to the product that we produce, sterile instrumentation and equipment, that we are more alike than not, because everybody's mindset is to get that patient taken care of at the highest level possible, so that they leave having their problem being fixed and with nothing but happy words about what we do. A question comes up with, how do you define collaboration? I define collaboration as coming together on one accord, working towards the same means. Coming together on one accord, meaning we agree to get the job done. And if with that agreement, we can agree to disagree on certain processes that are going on. But it's coming together. So the question could come up, we can't work together, Miss Golden. We just can't. We just can't. Yes, you can. And when you come together on one accord for the same goal, taking care of the patient, you can work together. Because at the end of the day, your only goal is that that patient gets what they need. We stand back and we say surgery starts in SPD, because if we don't produce the product, the sterile trays, the sterile equipment, they can't do the surgery. And if we don't have a patient, there's no surgery for them to do. Therefore, we don't need to produce a product. So we all have a common goal. And at the end of the day, since we work, this is work and not volunteerism. Since we work, we want our work part, which is our patient, to get what they need. So I was sitting down thinking about how hard it has been over the years to find collaboration, even though we're working for the same goal. There's a question that says, but the OR talks so crazy to folks. I have found that the OR in general, not all ORs, and it's not the OR doesn't talk, it's people. This is a people issue. People. That when you don't know people, when you haven't met people, when you do not come together on one accord, you don't know each other. So you talk crazy. Yeah, you talk crazy to one another. So we're going to talk about how we stop having that to happen. Remember, I started off saying we have to work on friendships. Our common goal is to work together. So we're friends at the job for the common goal. See, sometimes we get it twisted, and you're trying to get a friend for the Friday night bar trip. That may not ever happen. And if it does happen, and I happen to be able to collaborate and work with my OR team member, and we form a relationship outside of the hospital, that's great. But we first must form a relationship in the hospital. And my relationships do not just stop with the operating room. My relationships go all over that whole hospital, because I work for everyone. So I can't just have one friend in the operating room. I've got to have several friends. And the more friends you have, the easier it is to come to work and do what you have to do each and every day. I can tell you that I have been in toxic relationships within my surgical services suite where we did not understand each other, and we really weren't trying to understand each other because we spent most of our energy trying to be right. And you don't have to be right all the time. You don't have to, you can be right and not just force that down somebody's throat. So we would spend our time saying, well, this is what you did. And they would say, well, this is what you all did. So we spent our energy on something that wasn't going to get any better because we spent a lot of time going around in circles. So energy wasted does not benefit anybody. It doesn't. It doesn't benefit you. It doesn't benefit the person or you're talking about. And it most definitely does not benefit our patient. And that's what we want to do. So we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about toxic relationships and how you can motivate your team to great collaboration with the OR team, the L&D team, the ED team, CBIR team, radiation oncology team. You can just have friends everywhere. When we come back from this commercial, collaboration with team members all over the hospital.
Those in the know SIPS Consults. SIPS Consults is hiring. Confident, competent, and consistent. Starting as a consultant and a volunteer, SIPS has grown into a dynamic group of stellar sterile processing professionals, offering excellent benefits, 401k, and consultant in training program. We are hiring certified technicians, leads, supervisors, interim managers, educators, coordinators. Apply at recruiting@sipsconsults.com or dial 1-866-615-7977.
Hello to the team that gets it clean, and we're back. Collaboration with not just the OR, but with all teams. So how do we get to collaboration with various teams in our hospital? Well, I have found that first of all, you have to have common ground. So you need to come together and set, I always say this, the rules of engagement. What is it we're trying to do? What are the rules and how do we get there? So everybody has to come together and you sit down and you talk about this. Well, specific to the operating room, what I have found after 30 years is that if the management of each of these departments do not work together, you will not have great collaboration. So I got to one of the hospitals I was working at, and what we talked about was, what are the rules of engagement? What are we trying to do? How do we get there? How do we get there? And this is what I found out. If you find some common ground. So after I came in, I always ask the question of administration. And when I talk about administration, not necessarily the C-suite, the OR suite, surgical services suite, L&D suite. I ask this question, what is it that we're trying to achieve? Well, we just want to work together. Okay, well, how do you think we can work together? How? Well, we want to be sure that you all get the trays over here on time and that they're not contaminated and that, okay. We can't do everything in one day, so we got to find one thing and let's work on that. So we found some common ground. And what I suggested was that we answer a question. First of all, do we believe that we are a team? Because it's hard to work on collaboration to be a team if we don't believe in team and we don't think we're a team. So are we a team? Do these pieces fit the puzzle? And everybody says, yes, we fit the puzzle. Okay, so now that we believe we're a team and one cannot do without the other, it is in our best interest to have some common ground for our patient to have great outcomes. So here are the rules. We're going to find one project. We're going to work on that one project. And within that one project, everybody has a part to play. And the easiest thing you all can do is to find, every hospital has a tray that has instruments in it that they're not using. We're just constantly processing a tray with an abundance of instruments that are not used. So we asked the operating room, we said, here, we're going to give you the recipe for this tray. This is your tray. And we work at your pleasure. We want you to have what you need to do that case. Nothing more, nothing less. So this tray has 95 instruments in it. Do you need all 95 instruments? And we started dialoguing, talking. Well, no, we really don't need 20 Alice clamps. How many do you need? How many do you need? We really only need 8. Okay, so we're going to take the rest off. What else can we take off of this tray? Because the less instruments you have to count and to keep up with, the better off you are. The less instruments that we have to count, process, check in assembly, and put back together, the better off we are. And I found that as we talked about this, we began to find out we were on one accord. Now, when we stood together, remember I talked about administration in the OR. The OR manager and I always stood together when we talked to everybody. We stood together and we say, we are a team. And if Sharon says that you're supposed to put the instruments back on the string at the end of your surgical case, that is our standard in this surgical suite. We're standing together and the director standing on the other side saying, yes, this is what we do. Because we're working for the patient. There's a question here that says, do we need to have a good friendship or a good working relationship? I think you have to have a good working relationship. When you come to the job, you're there to work. If you maintain and receive a friendship along the way, it only makes coming to work a lot better. But it is all about working because we're working. We are here on one accord, working towards one goal. And that goal is to take care of the patient that is having a procedure. If there's no patient, no procedure, SPD has no reason to be there. If there's no patient, no procedure, the OR has no reason to be there. So our main common goal is the patient is having surgery. Our objective is to have that surgery go off without any problems. We don't want them to not have what they need. We don't want the operating room team running around looking for the second Kelly that you should have put on the tray, all while that patient is asleep under anesthesia. So we want to have a good working relationship. Now, what I have found is that operating rooms, and this is just my personal understanding of what I've done, where we all have the same dressing room, where we all have our meetings together, we have good working relationships because we get to know each other. See, for a long time, SPD was downstairs, OR was up on the second, third, fourth floor, and all we did was talk to each other via intercom or telephone. You never saw my face, you never saw me, you just heard a voice. And sometimes when you don't know somebody, you come off kind of rude. But when you have to say, hi, Sharon, this is Mary in room 10. I really need the laparoscopic instruments. I have the opportunity to say, okay, Mary, I got you. It's coming. Other than, hey, I need some laparoscopic instruments, click. We don't do that because we have a working relationship and we are all human beings and I deserve to be treated with respect just like you. There's no big I and no little you. So the rules of engagement also include that we will respectfully dialogue with each other. It makes things happen a lot easier. What are some of the benefits of relationships outside of the department? When you have relationships outside the department, you find that you have friends in high and low places. You find that you're able to get things done throughout the hospital. Because understand something, we have instruments all over the hospital, for instance. We have instruments everywhere. But when a surveyor, no matter what surveying body it is, comes to visit and they go to the ED and ED's seal pills are all crooked, wrinkled up, twisted, they come back to the sterile processing to see what is the problem. So it behooves you to be friends with the ED staff so that you can effectively give them the rules of engagement for maintaining those seal pills and those trays. And they won't be hostile. See, sometimes people think they know what your job is, and that's why they try to tell you what to do. You have to respectfully be able to tell them, hey, I'm not going to tell you how to run the ED, but I know for a fact that the standard says that seal pill stands on edge. It should be in a place where it can breathe. It should be on a shelf. It shouldn't be cluttered. This is what we need to do so that we, as a service, as a group, are able to take care of our patient. Relationships. I find that it's easier to be friendly with the L&D staff because when I'm friendly and when we have a relationship, I can effectively say, hey, L&D, you all are bringing our trays down too late for us to effectively reprocess them in a timely manner so that you get them back. Because the bottom line is I cannot give them to you hot. They have to be completely cooled. And if you bring them down at 6:30 in the morning and you wait and bring all the trays you own, you cannot call me back at 8 o'clock and ask me anything. They will not be ready. So what I want you to do is the rules of engagement are you will bring your trays down at the end of every shift, no matter how many you have. And whatever you bring, we will effectively put them together right away. We will clean them, we will assemble them, and we will process them in a timely manner so that we always have your trays done. We have put you on the top of our priority list. And when you say that somebody's on the top of a priority list, they start feeling good about themselves because they say, you know what? SPD gets me. They're here working together with us to take care of our L&D patients. What are other methods apart from being courteous that gets other teams to listen to you? Another method is knowing what you do. So if they ask you questions about what you do or why you need to have the trays brought down in a timely manner, and you cannot effectively give them an answer, that shows that maybe you're not as well versed in your specialty as you should be. See, when you're able to stand and effectively articulate why you need the trays brought down in a timely manner, when you're able to effectively articulate to the OR that our process under rules of engagement is that we do not IUSS unless it is absolutely positively necessary. And when we stand together, the OR manager, the OR director, and I, and we say, we articulate, we do not IUSS unless it is absolutely positively necessary. They understand that all of us are on the same page. And then they're able to understand the rules of engagement for that process. And they understand why you say, what can we do? Or do you really need it? And I need to know why, because I have to put it in the report so that after this case, when we come back in a few weeks, we can discuss what happened. What happened? So you have to know what you're talking about. Nobody wants to talk to anybody that's always saying, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Because they're always going to ask you why. Why? Why? And you cannot say because, for instance, I'm the manager at my place. You cannot say because Miss Golden said. And that's not what I want people to say. I want people to be able to articulate. We're not supposed to IUSS unless it is absolutely positively necessary. To the team that gets it clean, we should know that. That's embedded within who we are. Just like you cannot sterilize something that isn't clean. Nobody has to beat that into you. That's what you've learned. That's what you've read. That's what you know. And you can articulate that from beginning to end all day long. I can stand in front of a physician and say that, sir, if it isn't clean, we cannot sterilize it. Well, it's just got a little something on it. Scratch that off and then bring it on. No, sir. And I can stand there and say, no, sir, because my OR manager is going to come and say, no, sir. The OR director is going to come and say, no, sir. And the C-suite, which is supporting the three of us, is going to say, no, sir, we cannot do that because we collectively work for the patient. The question why is not a threat. That's absolutely correct. We have a right to say why. The one thing I found hard within this collaboration was to get the operating room to understand that we are a team and we are asking a question from SPD because we're trying to effectively take care of the issue. But because we had so much hatred for each other for so many years, some people, they didn't want us asking any questions. And I had to go in and say, look, we are intelligent just like you. And we are specialists in our field. And if I ask you, do you need 4 Alice's in the tray? I work at your pleasure to give you what you need. You should be able to articulate yes or no. And if you tell me yes, I'm going to give you 4. If you say no, we really only need 2, I'm going to ask you, could we possibly take the other 2 off? Because in the end, it helps us. It helps us to preserve our instruments. We're not just washing and processing instruments just because. It helps you with your count. Now you don't have to count instruments that you really don't need. And you got to open lock boxes of 110 instruments because you said that's what we've always had. It helps you. And what we want to do is help each other to do better. That's what we always want to do. I had something down here that I wrote that I said that we must speak the same language. So it's hard to communicate. I found this very hard because I travel the world. I found it really hard when I go into a country and they speak a different language and I don't understand. I cannot effectively communicate. I mean, we can say, and that's hello everywhere. If you wave, everybody would say hello. That's peace all over the world. You run any country I've ever been to. If I put up those deuces, they're like peace, peace, peace. Peace. We go out and say deuces. They're like peace. I was in Japan walking around and some young ladies came up to me and they're like, can we take a picture with you? And I'm like, well, they had on their kimonos. I'm like, well, yeah, because I would like to take a picture with you. We didn't say those exact words. They just asked, could they take a picture? And I'm like, okay. And they all stood up. And when we got ready to take the picture and we got our smiles together, the first thing they did was peace. Because that's what they knew of us in America from another era, of course, peace. But I understood that and I understood hello. But when we're working in surgical services and within the hospital systems, we don't always speak the same language. We speak issues and problems. And you cannot solve issues and problems if you come in with the issue. You must come in and find common ground. And we must be willing to accept the consequences for our part in the issue. I'm very transparent. And if we did something wrong, I will accept the consequences for what we did wrong. And SPD does things wrong. I just had the other day, I had someone that labeled an iris scissor. She wasn't paying attention. An Adson tissue faucet. Now, SPD Nation, CSS, you all know we know the difference between the iris and an Adson. But it frustrated my customer from wound care. Because when they picked it up thinking that they had an Adson, it was an iris. And at that moment, their blood began to boil. But because we speak the same language, when they came to me with it, they brought the pill pack, all the evidence. I stood there and said, you know what? You're absolutely right. Did we hinder your process? Did we hinder your case? And she said, no, but it's just that, it's kind of frustrating. And I said, I understand it's frustrating. It's frustrating for me as the manager to have you bring me back a pill pack labeled Adson tissue faucet and have an iris scissor in it. And I will accept that we are wrong. So once you say we're wrong, when you are, people start exhaling. And as they exhale, as they breathe, they start listening. So you cannot communicate unless you speak the same language. In order to speak the same language, someone has to shut up. That's the last nugget I want to drop. Somebody has to shut up. We both cannot talk at the same time. And that's kind of hard for the human factor because we want to get our point across. It's not always about getting your point across. Sometimes it's just about shutting up and saying, I understand. And I'm going to try to work to make sure this doesn't happen ever again. So communication is key to collaboration. Collaboration is working together as a team towards a common goal. Friendliness makes the common goal achievable. And that's what we want to do. So that's where we are. And I think we want to do one more commercial and I come back and we'll close this out. Team that gets it clean, collaboration, communication. It's achievable. Okay, so as we finish for tonight, because I just want you to work on a few little things. Collaboration, working together towards a common goal with all of your customers, not just the OR. They just happen to be your biggest customer. The OR, the L&D, CBIR, radiation oncology, everybody. Collaboration. Speak the same language. Make sure you understand what's being said. Shut up. Be quiet. Listen. Because what you thought you heard may not be what you really heard. Allow your brain to engage before your mouth starts talking. Now, I talk a lot and I've had to learn that a hard way. I've had a lot of things go wrong because my mouth was running when I should have been quiet. And when my mouth began to run, I didn't really hear the question. I heard what I thought I heard. Therefore, I answered the wrong way. So, collaboration needs communication. Communication is achievable when you speak the same language and when you know the rules of engagement. What is our common goal? What are we trying to achieve? Why are we trying to achieve? What will enhance my patient's care? Understand why you are there. Can we work together with the OR? That's our biggest question as a CS nation. The answer is yes. If we're all on the same team, on one accord for the same goal. My goal is patient care. My goal is to work together with all members of all teams. I want to have friends all over the hospital because the more friends I have, the less stress I have. And if I don't have a lot of stress, I might live a little longer. I want a stress-free environment. And I want to understand why I am there. So this is a question we could talk about for 2-3 hours. People would throw out all kinds of things at me. It doesn't work here in Texas. It doesn't work here in Michigan. It doesn't work in Florida. I'm here to tell you, if you would just understand what I said, collaboration requires teamwork and a common goal. It requires communication. It requires having the ability to understand what our process is and what we're trying to achieve. What is our common goal? And it requires that you listen and understand the rules of engagement. Collaboration you can have with everybody in the hospital. Friendships you can have with everybody in the hospital. Working friendships. And if you happen to be good like I am most of the time, you have off working relationships where you have friends outside of work where we can get together and understand and talk about things other than work. We can talk about it was 90 degrees today and how hot it is and how we all want to make sure our air conditioners are working because we're friends. And then lastly, no matter what happens to you on any given day with any of your team members, be it the OR, L&D, ED, CBIR, radiation oncology, a doctor, understand this. We're human beings and it really isn't personal. You work for the patient. That's the important part. That's it for tonight. I hope that you all got something out of this. To the team that gets it clean, I hope that you have a good rest of the evening. Collaboration, communication, articulate what you know, understand what your goal is. Good night.